The Tower of Nero is the fifth and final book in the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. It is also said to be the last book in the Camp Half-Blood / Riordanverse series as well, which isn't really true, because Rick announced a Nico solo book which takes place after the events of this book. Anyway, I'm going to make a review of this book in this video. Since this is one of Rick's most recent books, I'm going to have to give a major spoiler warning for almost all the books in the Riordanverse itself. With that, let's get started. Starting off with the rating of this book. I'd rate it a 5 out of 5 stars. If you've watched my other videos, then you'd know that I absolutely love this book, and I have praised it time and time again to the point that I think it's the best out of the entire Trials of Apollo series. This book emotionally damaged me after finishing it, and it honestly made me cry and laugh at the same time. So let's talk about the book. One of the new things we actually got was the character Lugaselwa. Right now, I'm pronouncing her name right because I actually read it as Lugaswelga. I mean, it's a pretty hard name to pronounce, and because of that, I'm just gonna call her Lu throughout this entire video. Plus, Lu is actually an established nickname Rick gave her in this book. So as she was a new character, I was a bit suspicious of her. Meg assured Apollo that Lu was on their side and not Nero's, but I was still questioning Lu's loyalty. At one point, they enter Percy's house and Percy wasn't there. Instead, Apollo, Meg, and Lu met Sally Jackson and Percy's stepdad Paul. Meeting Estelle Blofist made me so happy, and I'm just really glad that we were able to see the Jackson Blofist house in this book. So eventually, they reach Camp Half-Blood, and there, they reunite with Nico and Will. At one point, Nico asked something that made me wish that he didn't need to bring it up. As a son of Hades, Nico could feel people dying and go into the underworld, and he asked Apollo if it was true, if Jason was really dead, as he felt Jason's soul enter the underworld. This question broke my heart, and it made me go back to the time when Nico was a lot younger, and he asked Percy where Bianca was. Apollo just cried, not knowing what to even say. Instead of losing his temper and breaking the ground like what he did when he learned Bianca was dead, Nico muttered something in Italian and left. Speaking of Jason, I want to talk about a quote he said in this book. To give context, Apollo was wounded and in pain because Meg was taken by Nero. He passes out and he sees Jason. Apollo apologizes to Jason, and Jason said that Apollo was not to blame as to what happened to him. He ends it by saying, "Remember what's important." Apollo argues with us though, saying, "You're important. Your life." Jason tilted his head and said another heartbreaking quote. He said, "I mean, sure, but if a hero isn't ready to lose everything for a greater cause, is that person really a hero?" That line just made me think for a second, and it just made me love Jason's character even more. He's that noble to do that, and I just don't know if it's because of the Roman training he had, but, that's just really selfless. To make peace with what he just did and accept his death. For a 17 to 18-year-old, that's pretty mature of him to do that. So now, let's head to the aspect that shocked me. When I first read this book, I didn't actually notice it, but looking back, I should have. I think the reason why is because I haven't read the Kane Chronicles during that time, and it needs knowledge of the Kane Chronicles to know the reference that Rick made. So anyway, Rachel claims that she's seeing some weird cattle outside her house because of a neighbor. None of them see it though, and because of this, they just disregarded it. But looking keenly into that neighbor was actually Brooklyn House from the Kane Chronicles. Brooklyn House was the base of operations of magicians like Carter and Sadie. It's kind of like the Camp Half-Blood of the Kane Chronicles. It really shocked me because that just means that Rachel was neighbors with Carter and Sadie, and there was a different mythology with different sets of gods without Rachel knowing. Also, what's Carter and Sadie doing all that cattle? I love the fact that through this, Rick is connecting all of his books into one whole universe. Actually, there has been a few cameos here and there in other books. So for examples, in the Kane Chronicles, Sadie asked why they would be in Brooklyn if they could be in Manhattan. Her Uncle Amos replied by mentioning other gods, which is a direct reference to the Greeks from PJO. Another cameo was seen in the Hidden Oracle. Apollo mentions meeting a dude with a talking sword that wouldn't shut up, and this is another direct reference to another series. Specifically Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. The dude was Frey, and at the time before his son Magnus inherited from him, Frey still had a talking sword, which is Jack or Sumerbrander. Speaking of these crossovers, by the end of the Tower of Nero, we get another crossover. We see Chiron talking to two people you'd only know if you've read both the Kane Chronicles and Magnus Chase. It was a cat lady and a severed head. Boss from the Kane Chronicles being the said cat lady, and the severed head being a Mimir, a Norse god from Magnus Chase. We don't really get that much at the meeting, only that it's important. And I wonder what Rick's trying to do here. It's as if he's deliberately trying to connect all the series he's made over the years into one big crossover, and they're recognizing mythology and gods from different pantheons. Apollo mentions the different pantheons a couple of times throughout the series, and he even mentioned Ra from the King Chronicles at one point in the Hidden Oracle. By the title itself, I knew that they were going to meet Nero again in this book. In book 1, I did not like Nero, especially after learning the trauma that Meg had to endure because of him. I actually sort of disregarded this character because he wasn't really present from the Dark Prophecy to the Tyrant's tomb. There were just a few moments of him, but he wasn't really present, and it focused more on Commodus and Caligula. In fact, I don't think that Nero did anything in the battle that occurred in Camp Jupiter and the Tyrant's tomb. That was just Commodus and Caligula. He did nothing. Apollo mentions in the previous book before this that Nero was the worst out of the emperors, and I personally disagreed with it. At first. From reading the Tyrant's tomb, I hated both Commodus and Caligula and not that much of Nero, because again, I disregarded him. But what Nero did in this book was insane to the fact that I think he's the type of character that, if I had a chance, I would immediately kick him to the cliff because he was just so horrible. For starters, aside from Meg, his adoptive daughter, he had other children who he manipulated and emotionally traumatized. He did that to 11 other kids, with Meg being the 12th, and it's just horrible. And I have to say, including this type of trauma in his books was a pretty brave move for Rick. He included it in the sense that he didn't want the audience to be uncomfortable or fear it, but he made the tone as if he wanted you to be aware of it. Like, he wanted you to know that this is happening in some places around the world. And I honestly like that. So how was Nero horrible in this book? Well, for starters, let's talk about what he did to Lou. When Lou, Apollo, and Meg were in the tower, Nero ordered Cassius, one of the emotionally traumatized kids, to chop off Lou's hands. It didn't help that he even ordered the same kid to take Meg's knives, which she cherishes the most. After which, he welcomes Meg home, which is just so sickening that I wanted to get in this book and give him a good punch across the face. Like, does he understand how emotionally traumatized Meg is because of him? Well, come to think about it, I think he does know that, because he wants to use that against her. Also, that scene where Apollo tries to save her and Nero gave Meg a whole new makeover against her will, that was just evil. My most favorite part of this book has to be that battle that raged in Nero's tower and how the demigods of Camp Haplet came to take Nero and his Germani down. Though I wanted both Annabeth and Percy, or the rest of the 7 there to help, I was still pretty much satisfied as to what happened in this scene. Plus, I love the detail where Apollo meets with his 2 kids, Kyla and Austin. I don't know why, but it was just really heartwarming to read. For an Olympian to actually care about their kids is pretty rare in the Riordan verse, and to see Apollo really care about Kyla and Austin was just a great detail. Plus, I don't really think that I can't not mention that part of this book where Meg finally placed Nero in his place and told him that he couldn't manipulate her anymore. Like, that was such a powerful move on Meg's behalf, and I felt so proud of her. Also, that added thing with Nero trying to manipulate her again with the thought of the beast, and what Meg said was just so amazing to hear. She told him that the beast is dead and that she killed it. An entire battle rages. It all ended up to Nero finding the actual remote, and it just basically pulled me to the edge of my seat. Things seem pretty bad, but then Will suddenly gets in, and I just love the fact that he came and told Nero that nobody hits his boyfriend, aka Nico, or kills his dad, aka Apollo. The fact that Will looked intimidating enough for the Germani to not stop him to take Nico away from there had me laughing. Like, I absolutely love Will. I don't care that he's a minor character because he's just amazing. Like, what a brave soul. It all ends to probably the most satisfying thing in this book. Nero dies, and literally dissolves kind of like Voldemort from Harry Potter, but he was dead, and it felt so good. I know that seems a bit mean, but I felt absolutely no sympathy or remorse that Nero died. Like, good for him. Let's just ask Hades to send him to Tartarus. Apollo had this vision about the rest of the Olympians, and it shows Hera crying. She was crying because of what Apollo was going through, and she was mourning Jason's death. Like, Hera was mourning the death of a son of Jupiter who was not her child. That's just really mind-boggling. Plus, Hera crying and feeling horrible for Apollo, who actually hates her because of what Hera did to their mother, that's just some huge character development. It all leads up to Apollo facing his final enemy, Python. Their fight was so epic, I just really had to say that. And it all ends up with the arrow of Dodona. Apollo was out of arrows, and the arrow of Dodona ordered Apollo to use it, which, looking back to the previous books, that is so controversial, and it literally made me cry. Like, why did Rick have to give me emotions for an arrow? But Apollo used it, and they eventually led to freaking Tartarus. After fighting some more, Python was sucked into chaos, and that felt really good. Apollo wakes up to Olympus, and I just love that tender moment he had with his sister Artemis. Like, I'm sorry, but that was just really cute. In the end of the book, he goes around to his children and to his friends. He goes to Camp Jupiter, where it's revealed that Hazel lost the jewel curse that she had throughout the Heroes of Olympus series, and I love the fact that she's still Praetor alongside her boyfriend Frank. We then head to the way station, and we see Reyna and the hunters there. Seeing Reyna there was such a great scene to read alongside Thalia, and they revealed that Leo and Calypso were taking a break from each other from their relationship, which made me pretty sad. I liked them together, and I didn't really like the fact that they had relationship issues. Though Reyna assured Apollo that Leo and Calypso would work it out, I still felt sorta bad. And then, we head to New Rome, and we see Annabeth and Percy, who reveals they're going to college. Seeing them there made me so happy for them. Like, they deserve a break after all the life-threatening prophecies they've been through. And then, we go to Camp Half-Blood, and we meet Will and Nico. There, it's revealed that Will and Nico were planning to go to Tartarus to save Bob from the House of Hades, and Rachel announced a prophecy that Apollo didn't reveal in this book. I wonder what the prophecy meant, because Will admitted that it didn't sound great. Whatever happens to their journey will be revealed in a Nico book that would be written by Rick and another author named Mike Oshiro, which would come out next year, 2023. The last visit that Apollo was going to make was for Piper. Apollo comes into her house and walks into Piper kissing a girl who was Shell. Piper coming out as bisexual was way too shocking to me, that I just stared at the text for I don't know how long, but it really shocked me. I never felt Piper being attracted to other girls, and I just didn't really expect that. I feel sort of mixed about this, because I know that Piper has the right to move on from Jason, but I wish that she stayed single for a bit before getting to know another person and starting up another relationship. But anyway, the last visit was for Meg. The two of them hug, and it turns out that Meg took all of the 11 kids that Nero abused to live with her and Lou. This made me so happy, and the little talk that Meg and Apollo had was so heartwarming. From hating each other and always arguing, they became so close, and this line just made me tear up. Meg said, "You'll come back?" Apollo replied, "Always. The sun always comes back." And then, the last paragraph of this book really made me cry. It said, "So, dear reader, we have come to the end of my trials. You have followed me through 5 volumes of adventures and 6 months of pain and suffering. By my reckoning, you have read 210 of my haiku. Like Meg, you surely deserve a reward. What would you accept? I am fresh out of unicorns. However, anytime you take aim and prepare to fire your best shot, anytime you seek to put your emotions into a song or poem, know that I am smiling on you. We are friends now. Call on me. I will be there for you." And thus, the book ended, and I was laughing and crying at the same time. So now, the question is, was this a worth it ending to this series? For me, it obviously was. It's a really memorable book to me, and I think it would remain as one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. So how about you? Was this a worth it ending to you? Let me know in the comments down below.